And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at an expansion. This is Role Player, and the expansion we're talking about today is Fiends and Familiars. This is the second expansion for Role Player, and when I backed this on Kickstarter, it came in this giant box. I specifically got this giant box. It actually comes in a small box you can get, but this giant box holds everything from both expansions in the original game, which is what I tend to like. But this is the second expansion, which actually has a lot of overlap with the first expansion's Monsters and Minions. There are some differences. Obviously, this one has Fiends and Familiars. So let me show you what's in this expansion, and then we'll talk about it. All right, let's first talk about the stuff that comes in this expansion. So we have some new races here, the Vargar, who are apparently some sort of dog creature, and they don't have a lot of charisma, so there's that. And then we got the penguins, they're birds. That Kai, I like that, the helmet that this one has. They have wisdom. And tree people, the Sheki. I keep flipping these over the wrong way. And then the Saurians. Got it right this time. Saurians, you think they would have less charisma, but no, they just have less intelligence and wisdom. So that's, these are just, more combinations of these boards. One of the big things this game includes with are new dice. So these dice are thrown in a bag along with ordinary dice, and you pull them and you'll place them just like a die, but they count as two colors. So this die, for example, is green and purple. And that's great. It always counts as both colors. The disadvantage to these dice are they go to a maximum of 4. Now, I will say that I had a hard time sometimes figuring out the number on these. I know that it shows 4 pips, or this one's a 2. It's the 3s, I think, that throw me off. They don't necessarily look like a 3 at first glance, but we did get used to them. So that's kind of cool that these dice are out here. I don't know that I love them a ton. I mean, even though they are 2 colors, going up to 4 is a pretty big disadvantage, especially when trying to complete stuff. Then we have familiars. So in this game, there are now familiars. You can draw 2 and get 1. This is another board that you'll put at the top of your boards. Here I can have a horned viper. Now, these familiars are going to score you points at the end of the game. You're going to place dice in them just like you did with everything else. So, for example, the horned viper says it needs a power of 5 or 6. So, let's say I managed to put these 3 dice. Ooh, look, they're all the new double ones. So that's a power of 6, right? So I'll get 2 points at the end of the game. So when you place dice, you can place them here. And also if they match the colors, here I match all 3 colors, green, blue, and black, I get extra points. But the main thing that they do is they give you another skill here. When you place a die, you get to do something unique. For example, here, when you place a die here, you can use one of your skill cards, even if it's exhausted, without moving your alignment marker. Well, that's pretty neat. Let's see what other things are possible. This turtle, when you place a die here, you can take an intelligence or a wisdom attribute action. The jackalope, which I always want that to be in a game, you can take an intelligence attribute action. If the new face is higher than the original face value, you get an honor token. Here you can banish a fiend card. What's a fiend? We'll talk about those in a second. Here you can gain 3 gold or 2 experience. Here you can spend 2 gold to take any attribute action. And there are many of these. So this gives you another spot. Now, you might be thinking, wait, how does the game work now when it comes to putting the dice out there? Because that adds 3 more dice. So what you do in this case is at the beginning of the game, you will draw, instead of 8 dice, you will draw 6 dice only. And then you're going to put a card in the deck, a market card, that when it shows up, for the first half of the game, basically the first 5 rounds of the game, you're going to draw 2 dice and put them on each card. When these dice are drawn and you place them, when you take a card with dice on, you get to do one of the 2 actions. You don't get to do both. For the second 5 turns of the game, you'll be simply drawing 1 die each. So you'll still be putting out the same. You'll still have 10 rounds in the game, but that's a slight change. Well, actually, I think it's a pretty big change from the original game. So you'll notice, like I said, there's these Fiends here, that there's a spot to put your Fiends here, and one of the familiars talked about Fiends. There's a new set of cards here where you'll be placing the dice on each turn, and so this is an example set up for a 4-player game. You'll notice the last 2 cards here have Fiend on them. So you're going to place from the top of the Fiend deck a Fiend on each of these. You notice they nicely finish the cards there. If you take these cards, which at the beginning of the game are going to have 2 high dice on them, so there's, they're pretty good, you also get the Fiend. A Fiend you're going to keep face up in front of you, and that's going to do something negative. For example, this one says, when you go on a hunt, get an injury token. When you place a die in the intelligence or wisdom attribute row, you get 2 injury tokens. Sometimes when you buy a skill card, you have to pay double the normal cost. When you select a die with a face value of 6 or higher, re-roll it. When you buy a weapon card, you must pay double the normal cost. So this is all really, really annoying stuff that's going to happen to you. When you put it there, it's going to, these could build up, especially if you get 1 or more Fiends. Happily, you can get rid of Fiends. You can either pay 5 gold, or you can give up one of your charisma tokens to banish a Fiend card. And when you banish a Fiend card that you have, you will simply just take the Fiend card and turn it over, because some of the market cards and things will refer to the total number of Fiends that you have or whatever you might have. And you definitely want to get rid of them. There's also other cards and things that will help you get rid of Fiends. So this adds a little bit more tension to taking these high dice here at the end. The next part of this expansion is also in the last expansion, the monsters and minions, because you have monsters and you have minions. And in this, on your turn, if you've not played the first expansion, instead of buying a market card or discarding a market and taking money, you can fight a minion. And so when you fight a minion, you're going to roll a die and try to get a certain range here. So this, for example, says roll 1 combat die, add your current constitution attribute, score the result. So maybe my constitution's a 12. So I'm like, all right, great. So I roll this die, I roll the 5. So I get 17. I look here, and on here the reward is a wound, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and 2 experience. Had I got 19 or higher, then I would have been able to make one of my dice go up or down by 1, and I would get to keep this card, which counts as like a trophy towards the end of the game. If you don't like this, you can always pay to flip over a different card. This one gives you 1 die, but it gives you more dice for each die with a face value of 1 in your character sheet. Have a bunch of low numbers? Pretty easy to fight up against the bats. I might have 3 1s. I get to roll 4 dice here. And again, the higher you are, the better ability that you have. But you also can get these experience points. Experience points they're just little clear blue cubes, and you can use them for various things over the course of the game. In fact, it comes with a little card that tells you can spend experience to re-roll a combat die, 2 to get rid of an injury token that you'll be collecting, 3 to get an extra combat die when you fight. It's like a mercenary. You can also pay 5 gold to take an extra die, and 5 to take the attribute action, and then the gold can be used for other things. And so as you take these actions, why are you fighting these minions? Because every time you successfully fight a minion, you're going to learn about the monster you're fighting. So this game comes with several large giant monsters that you can fight. By the way, there's also alternate versions for the 1-player version for each one of these cards. When you fight a monster, so let's say, for example, we picked a griffin for the game we're playing. The Griffin comes with its own little deck of cards, and from this deck you're going to randomly pick 1 obstacle, 1 attack, and 1 location. These are placed here in order here. I think it's LAO. It might be a different order. And whenever you defeat a minion, you can look at the top card here. And this is going to tell you how you're going to fight the minion here. And all players with 2 or more dice with a face value of 1 in their character sheet get 2 combat dice when you fight the Griffin here. And you take these tokens to show which one of these you can see. The more of these you can see, the more dice you're going to be rolling, because at the end of the game, everyone fights the Griffin. You're going to have a whole pile of dice, and then you can get up to here, in this case, 8 points, but you need a 26 or higher. Each injury token you've taken will subtract the die, and each of the charisma tokens you take will add dice to this total. And of course, if you've been saving your experience tokens, you'll be able to use those in the final battle too. So fighting these minions will give you sometimes a nice quick bonus when you fight them, but also they prepare you at the end of the game where you can get several points from fighting this giant monster. Then the game comes with all kinds of other stuff. You got more classes. I like those. When you go fight a minion, that's called the hunt. When you get experience, you get an extra experience. So the scribe is worth using that for. Or maybe when you buy a trait card, you may take a wisdom attribute action. When you select a red die, you may banish a fiend card. So that's cool to help get rid of fiends. You can hire mercenaries for 2 gold each instead of 5 when you're buying the extra dice. So these really can't be mixed into the original set unless you're using the new stuff. And then of course there's new backstories here: Tormented, Bookworm, Culpable, and new alignment cards: Loner and Purist and Counselor and Warden. And then a ton of market cards. This is the Call to Adventure card, which is the one that you stick in the deck at a certain point to when it comes out. You stop pulling 2 dice from the bag and you'll get 1. But there's all sorts of market cards, and you won't use every market card. You will take a certain number out of the game, but you'll notice there's ones here that have to do with banishing fiends. This one I love. It can have you an extra 2 hands of weapon cards. If you like a lot of weapons, they're good. Honor tokens, those are the tokens you get to give you extra dice against the monster. I may have called them charisma tokens before. Honor tokens. Gain 1 for each injury token. I got a lot of injury tokens, but hey, they're worth points at the end of the game. And so there's all kinds of stuff in here, including a new set of armor, the Runic set, which can give you 15 points if you get all 6, which I doubt will ever happen here. If you get the 8 during the monster combat at the end, this gives you an extra 3. So there's all kinds of stuff, and so it's going to give you a greater variety in the market phase. So that's pretty much everything that's included with this set. I do want to point out these special orange dice for combat. I really like them. They're a different size than the normal dice and orange, so you don't get them mixed up at all. So pretty clearly, I want to start out here by pointing out that I don't like this expansion as much as the first one. I thought the first expansion was phenomenal. This one I think is truly good, great, just not as good as the first one. But so that sounds bad, you know, like, oh, well, boy, wait a minute. You know, it just is what it is. It's still really good. It's just so what's the difference between them? Well, they both have the monsters and minions, which if you've never played with them, I will pretty much refuse to play role player without them. So you could call this an essential expansion, although the first one has the same thing. So either one and mix them together gives you such a wide variety of monsters and the minions. There's a lot of those. This one adds the Fiends and Familiars, and then the other one added the clear dice that went up to 8. This one adds the double colored dice. Gotta be honest, I like the clear dice better. The double colored dice are neat. You can fill colors and, you know, get points for them that way, but at the end of the day, I'd rather have an 8 than have a 4 double colored die. Still, the variety is nice, and mixing them together is awesome. So then we're left with Fiends and Familiars, and the fact of the matter is, I could have lived without the Fiends and Familiars. The Familiars are neat that they add 3 more things at the top and give you a special ability, but the game slows down just the tiniest bit because putting out 2 dice each round on the cards means there's going to be more ties, which means the person putting out the dice is going to think more carefully, and that does slow the game down slightly. Also, taking 2 dice but only able to use 1, even though it's the same thing as, you know, initial setup, feels a little bit less thrilling. I don't know how else to explain it. And also you're getting 2 low dice or 2 high dice. And then there's the Fiends. The Fiends are not impossible to get rid of. You can get rid of them through money and experience points, and also special abilities, but they are a pain in the neck. And I like role player a lot, and I don't know that I want to add pain in the neck stuff to the game. So this is where I'm at with this expansion. The Fiends and Familiars, I play with them sometimes. I wouldn't want to play with them all the time. They're interesting. They add stuff to the game. The problem is if you don't play with them, then you have to take out the equipment cards that do it. The new equipment, amazing. The new stuff, great. I love having multiples of all that stuff. The only problem with the new stuff is the market deck's pretty fat now. So you take out a certain number of cards depending on the number of players. And getting those complete sets of armor is almost never going to happen unless you're really lucky and that set of armor happens to be in the deck. I don't think it's a big deal. The sets of armor were pretty powerful to begin with, so diluting them a little bit doesn't hurt. But it still is, if you're like a completionist, I got to have this whole set of armor, it may not be in there. Again, monsters and minions, amazing. That part of this set is great. It gives you another option. Fighting the minions is fun. You get to roll dice and have combat, and it makes the game have a little bit more theme instead of just putting the dice in the different spots. The dual color dice, not as cool as the clear ones, but mixing them together is amazing. So I like this expansion a lot. This is what I would recommend though. If I was ranking the game, if you're playing with just the monsters and minion stuff, it is amazing. It's a 10 out of 10 expansion. And the dual color dice doesn't hurt. So if I was going to get one expansion, I'd get monsters and minions. If I was going to get two, I'd get this one and then play with both. I wouldn't play with just this expansion. Now I'm pulling double color dice and clear dice out of the bag and the regular dice. That's awesome. Now I have all kinds of weapons and things. The variety is great. Mixtures of monsters and minions are fun. By the way, the new minions in this set that add your skill, one of your stats to your die, that's fantastic. I think that's tremendous. If anything, this definitely adds a ton of variety. I feel like this game's done. I don't need another expansion. There's so much variety in here. So I want to be really clear that some of this you've been like, wow, was this a negative review? No, immensely positive. The only thing is that this one is slightly less than the last expansion, but they're both fantastic. And if you love Role Player, you should get both of them, especially if you can manage to get this box to put everything inside it. So a lot of fun, some cool aspects, some minor niggling things like like I said, I think if you use the Fiends and Familiars part of this, it does make the game a little bit slower than I would prefer. But other than that, I'm drowning in variety, and that's a happy place to be. I'm Tom Vasel. We'll see you next time. Dice Tower Judgment. Excellent.